Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Essays in Espresso podcast. Here with me are my cohorts, Boken. How are you?
Hello, I'm fine.
And Acer. What's up?
I'm good. I didn't have any editing problems.
Sure you didn't. So this episode is going to be about Game of the Decade. Because, last time we talked about Game of the Year, so why not Game of the Decade, I guess.
We also talked about Game of the Generation. So now
Yes.
we're essentially talking about the game of two generations.
Yes. So
It's true.
it's like that topic but on steroids.
It's also just topical. We won't get to do another one of these for another 10 years.
That's true.
Yes. So before we
Unless
get
we
into
talk
that,
about
though,
the game of the last the last decade.
Oh, that's crash to insanity.
Yeah, maybe we can do Game of the Decades. This decade, previous decade. I don't know.
Game of all
We don't
time.
need. It's already. I already said it. It's crash to insanity.
Clearly. But before we get into that, Acer, what have you been up to?
Nothing. Been editing the Silent Hill 3
I'm-
commentary.
I'm looking at the docket right now. You have clearly done something. Talk about it.
Hold on. Google Docs.
Do you have to look up what you wrote in our topics list?
Because
Because I can tell you.
I watched the Watchmen show, some of it.
The audience are judging us. They're seeing the sausage being made. They are disapproving.
I watched some of the Watchmen show. I liked some of it, and I disliked some of it. And that's my review.
Wow. Very insightful.
Yes. I mean, I can't. You guys haven't read the comic, so what am I supposed to do?
You could give us an idea of what you liked about it and what you didn't like about it without, going into too much detail if you don't want to spoil anything.
You could also assume that some of our viewers have read the comics.
I see. A bunch of nerds listening to this. Got him. Okay, so what I liked about the show, Watchmen is it's a work of anarchy fiction. Alan Moore is an anarchist, so Watchmen has a real love for anarchy. It's a really recurring theme of Watchmen that people's attempts to control the world are pathetic, and the harder they try, the more pathetic it becomes. In Watchmen, Richard Nixon is the president. It's like his third term, because it's set in the 80s where America won Vietnam. And the world they live in, it's sort of conservatism gone astray. I like that in the show, they flip it, and they do Robert Redford as the president, and it's like a weird progressivism gone astray. The cops need to call in permission to unholster their guns and stuff like that. Like, that the show kept that sort of anarchy spirit of the comic. Wow, really good. I don't like how the show seems to be ashamed of superheroes. Like the Watchmen, it's sort of a deep cut into, let's look at superheroes. This show doesn't really have superheroes. It has cops dressed up in costumes, but that's not the same.
Why? Do they have superpowers?
What? No. Dr. Manhattan
Well,
had superpowers.
In the original Watchmen,
That's
none of them
true, I
had
guess.
none of them had superpowers either. It was only
Dr.
Mr.
Manhattan.
Dr.
True.
Manhattan.
Mr. Manhattan.
I'm sorry. I haven't read the comic.
Well, anyway.
I saw the Snyder movie a long time ago, and I forgot most of it.
That movie is so weird. It's great in some areas, and it's really it really misses the mark in others.
Yeah, I could tell. The directing, strangely enough, was really good. Like, the choreography and stuff, the way it was shot was really good.
You know what I loved about the Watchmen show? There's a scene where they're doing like a biopic of the Hooded Justice, who's like a Minuteman back from like the past history of the Watchmen universe. And when they show the trailer for that movie in the show, it's the Zack Snyder choreography where the time slows down and like the camera does these snap zooms and all that. I love that they managed to work that into the lore of the show. That was really fun.
Okay, that sounds pretty good, actually.
a lot of people are mad that the show is addressing like current political climate. I think that's stupid because that's what the original Watchmen did.
I think that's a stupid complaint in general.
Yeah, well, the complaint is that Watchmen has been transformed into a vehicle to talk about politics. If that were the complaint, like that's the complaint they make, and I think it's a bad complaint because that's what Watchmen always was. I don't think, because the show is written by Damon Lindelof, who also wrote the movie. I know David Hayter also wrote the movie to some capacity, which is strange, but I don't think Damon Lindelof gets Ozymandias. I really I don't like anything Jeremy Irons is doing in that show. It doesn't seem like anybody has a clue about what this character is supposed to be, so they just went, let's make him weird and evil. That's
So is this the same characters? Is
yes,
this the same story, but just
there's
different?
some of the characters that survived Watchmen, they come back. And
is this like a weird pseudo sequel to the Snyder version?
No. This is the comic. This is a sequel to the comic.
It's a sequel to the comic, but written by the guy that also wrote the movie.
Yes,
that's weird.
That is
so
weird.
Having not read the comic, I do remember Ozymandias from the movie, and his portrayal what did strike me as a bit odd.
He was just an evil guy. He was just evil.
He also seemed inconsistent with the other characters in regards to like the superpowers, because he seemed like he was really strong and really fast, and there was no like real explanation for it. So did he have superpowers, or was he just like super badass for no reason?
In the book, it's explained. In the book, he so Ozymandias is just peak human. He's really kept up with his physical regime. He's just very smart. He's just peak human. He exercises really well. And unlike Rorschach and unlike Night Owl, he isn't out of shape. Like Rorschach has been in the gutters for the last 20 years. Rorschach's body is not in a good place. Night Owl, he's been retired for 10 years or something. His body's not in a good place. Ozymandias has been training. So that's kind of the explanation you can get.
Okay, that makes more
for Watchmen,
sense.
By the way,
that makes more sense because in the movie that wasn't like really conveyed at all. Like, because the way that he was portrayed in the movie, it almost seemed like he was superhuman. That's how strong he was.
Yeah,
and that always struck me as like really odd. Like, wait, why is he so fucking strong? So if the explanation is really just like, no, he's just really tough because he trains all the time. Like, okay. That makes more sense, but even still, the way that it was portrayed in the movie, it seemed a little more than just peak human ability. It came across as a little bit more supernatural than that. So I guess that's just a flaw in how the movie portrayed the character.
Yes.
It went a little overboard.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a complaint you can make about that movie in general, is that it's a lot of visual flair. I really like the movie, though. As much as I've been kind of crapping on it, I really like it. I just don't like it as a Watchmen fan. I like it as a guy who can turn his brain off and watch a Zack Snyder movie. Back on the show, though, I don't think our main characters... Watchmen follows a bunch of people. There's no main character of Watchmen. It's just, this is the group of characters whose life we're following right before the end of the world. And I feel like every character in Watchmen is really interesting in their own way. In the show, I don't think that's the case as much. I feel like all the mysteries they've been setting up, it's just, I don't care about this. Oh my god, is Dr. Manhattan on Earth? If he is, I feel like that's sort of missing the point of the Watchmen. So, I feel like the TV show, it's the best sequel they've made to Watchmen yet, and they've made a few. But I still don't think it's great. That's my review.
Close but no cigar?
Yes. There's a lot of... I feel it... See... Yeah, I guess we'll get more into this when I make you guys read Watchmen, and we'll talk about it on the show. But that's my review of the Watchmen TV show. What have you been doing, Daniel or Boken?
Well, I've been playing Shovel Knight.
Shovel it up your... No, sorry.
So, since the new King of Cards got announced, I was thinking, hey, why not actually go and play this game? Because I've owned it for a while now, and I haven't actually played it. So I figured, hey, they're going to release new content for it. The game's going to actually be complete now. Like, the game is actually done. It's the perfect time to actually, play all the way through.
Let me ask you something, Daniel. Did you dig it?
Yes. A lot. Many digs were had. So, I've beaten the main campaign.
I was doing a pun, Daniel.
I understood. I understood the pun. I internalized it, and I moved on.
And you chose to ignore it.
So I finished the main campaign, the Shovel of Hope.
This was so painful. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to anyone listening. This was painful.
Cringe. Shovel Knight, more like Cringe Knight. So yeah,
Daniel
the main campaign
Santos,
was pretty.
more like
Shut
cringe.
the fuck up and let me finish, stupid bitch. God damn. I finished the main campaign and it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I find it weird though that the developers keep saying like, "Oh, it's like Zelda 2. It's like Zelda 2 with like the down thrusting with the shovel." But it reminded me way more of DuckTales.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a common comparison people made.
Like, because I've been reading a lot of developer interviews, and I'm actually currently reading an article. I think it's called the 7-Year Journey or something like that. Let me see what it's called. Yeah, the 7-year saga of Shovel Knight is finally over. So I've been reading that article, and yeah, they talk about how they were inspired by Mega Man, and they were inspired by Mario and Zelda 2, and I definitely see Mario, I definitely see Mega Man, but not really as much Zelda 2. I get it with the down thrust, but like I feel like the versatility of that move is way more prominent in DuckTales than it is Zelda 2. Like that may have been where they got the idea, probably. But I don't know. They worked that way forward, so they had to have played DuckTales as well. I don't know. It's weird, but yeah, the game is really good. My only issue with it is at some point, gold just becomes like completely worthless. But then the game still has all these mechanics tied to like risk and reward. If you break your checkpoints, then you can get even more gold. At one point, you don't really need the gold anymore.
Well,
so
I feel like
that kind of becomes moot.
Yeah, well, if you want to challenge yourself, I feel like that's what the point is.
Yeah, it's good for a challenge. I agree there.
And it's not a challenge I'm looking forward to, because what I'm doing is get better items, but I have to redo things. Like it takes me longer to redo things because I'm spawning further away, which is not.
Maybe you need to get.
When
good,
I make
Bogan.
that decision, I'm not looking forward to dying.
Maybe you need to get good.
Well, then you shouldn't have made the decision.
Yeah, exactly. It's not an appealing decision to make, but I like challenge. But that's not a fun part of the challenge to just, be spawned to 5 checkpoints ago.
Yeah, well, that's the risk and reward, though.
I feel like that's more just you personally don't like it. I can see somebody liking that.
Really?
Yeah. Somebody would like that.
I think it's a neat idea where you get a little something out of it, but you're handicapping yourself if you fail.
I think a good challenge is one that is difficult. Well, not always, of course, but one that is difficult and that you can repeat relatively quickly. The part where you have to redo shit you already have mastered and just endure it and then get to the point that is actually difficult and then die and do it again, that's usually not that enjoyable.
That's how speedruns work, though. When you're learning how to make a speedrun.
Well, a speed gun is not a normal way to play a game.
Also, speedrunners don't necessarily start over all the time.
But that's what I'm saying is that is what appeals to them, the challenge of it, and that's a very similar challenge where you're just redoing a lot of stuff you're really good at to just master this one point of the game.
But that's not the part that they enjoy. I would assume. I would assume it's the
some of them probably
breaking a game and learning to do it all consistently in one quick go.
Yeah, maybe that's the challenge of Shovel Knight then, right? Anyway,
so I beat the main campaign of Shovel Knight. Really tight, really solid overall. Really enjoyed it. Then I played it as Plague Knight, and that campaign I didn't like as much. Now, I did like it though. I think Plague Knight has an interesting moveset, and I like the different mobility options that he has, but at the same time, I think it made the game a lot easier because there was a lot more of an opportunity for me to make up for a mistake by doing a double jump, doing a triple jump, doing a bomb jump. There's like 4 times the amount of mobility options than Shovel Knight has. So I was just able to correct myself on most mistakes and then just, get myself out of situations. You can even float by throwing bombs. Like when you throw a bomb, just by the act of throwing one, makes Plague Knight float more, and that gives you an opportunity to, save yourself. So there's just stuff like that. And also the fact that he's throwing bombs, which is a long range weapon. And you could even change the trajectory of the bomb. You can change when it blows up. You can change the nature of the explosion. Granted, these are all upgrades that you get. But because of that, I feel like because you can customize him so much, it just made his campaign like significantly easier compared to Shovel Knight's. Which, I still enjoyed it. I still had fun. But it did feel like I was just playing the Shovel Knight campaign again with a different character. Even though there were some changes and accommodations made for Plague Knight to make it a little bit different, it mostly felt like a character swap. Even though there is more to it than that. And right now I'm halfway through Spectre of Torment, the Spectre Knight playthrough, which has been my favorite so far. I think he has really interesting mechanics without feeling broken. Not to say that Plague Knight was broken, but he has his own levels that are specifically crafted for him. So it doesn't feel like certain challenges for Shovel Knight compared to Plague Knight could overcome them very easily because they were designed specifically for Shovel Knight. That sort of problem isn't in the Spectre Knight playthrough because all the challenges are specifically crafted for his character in mind. So I'm really enjoying his playthrough a lot. It definitely feels like a fresh new game by comparison rather than just a character swap. And I really like all his moves. His moves are really interesting and unique. So,
do you feel like you've had to excavate your own fun from these games?
No, not really. What do you mean by that?
It's an excavate pun.
Oh. I see.
That was the correct reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, aside from Shovel Knight, I'm not going to talk about this too long, but I beat the first Dragon Quest.
I'll mine a laughter out of you guys yet.
Jesus fuck.
Ha.
Sorry guys, I don't want to burrow this podcast.
So Dragon Quest.
I think I've unearthed a real.
Oh God! Please stop!
Trove.
Just stop! Stop!
When this podcast releases, it's going to be quite the scoop, don't you think?
Ooh.
That was it. I'm done.
Speaking of excavation.
This is worse than a drill tweet.
Bokin, don't dredge up this pun game again. Keep on, Daniel. We're not interrupting you, are we?
Oh, yeah, of course. So, speaking
I'm
of
sorry we've been
excavations,
throwing so
I
much
played the
muck
first.
on it. Sorry.
Shut up! I played the first Dragon Quest, the original, not the NES original. But I played the Switch remaster remake, which is kind of a weird version of the game. It's actually a port of the mobile version.
Yeah.
And one thing I really despise about this version is that the backgrounds look great,
Yeah.
but the character sprites look awful and they're mismatched. The art style of the backgrounds are different from the character sprites. So it looks like shit. It looks really bad. And it has another problem with screen interpolation. So when there's movement on screen, which is all the time, when the screen is moving, it has this weird scrolling effect that just looks awful.
Yeah.
So this effect is nowhere near as bad if you're playing in handheld mode, but if you're playing it on your TV, it looks bad. I heard the Dragon Quest 3 port doesn't suffer from this, but for whatever reason, Dragon Quest 1 and 2 have this issue. But yeah, the reason I played Dragon Quest 1 is because I am a JRPG nerd, so I figured, hey, I should play the first JRPG, for historical reasons. I think it's important to go back and see like where all of it came from. Now you could make the argument, well, what about Alcalabeth?
A deep dive, if you will.
Sure. Like some might say, what about Alcalabeth? What about Wizardry? What about Ultima? Those are like arguably the first RPGs ever made. But I don't want to play that shit. So, because I've seen what those games look like. I'm not playing that. Those games are extremely archaic. And don't get me wrong, the original Dragon Quest is still pretty archaic as well. But I think it resembles a modern RPG enough to where I was able to play it and beat it. It wasn't a particularly fun game, if I'm being honest, because it's an old NES RPG.
Did you think was there any component of that game which you thought, oh, RPGs don't do this anymore, and they should?
Not really.
Oh.
Like, the whole game basically played like a stereotypical JRPG, and that's because it is. Every other RPG ever made has literally been taken from this game.
Yeah, I see.
Like, you play as a knight. You have to save a princess. You fight a dragon. You fight the big bad guy. The big bad guy is just evil.
Those aren't RPG things, though. That's like just stories in general have been that.
Sure, but like it's also just
the presentation.
The frame. It's the
all.
framework that tons of JRPGs borrow from, and they're borrowing it more likely than not specifically from Dragon Quest, because for a lot of people who make JRPGs nowadays, they grew up with Dragon Quest. So even if you can make the argument, well, that's just stuff that's been in stories for a long time now. Yeah, but they are specifically using Dragon Quest as a baseline.
It's like how all those Star Wars fanboys are now making the Star Wars movies.
Sure, yeah. Even though Star Wars was like inspired by the Hidden Fortress.
And Flash Gordon and stuff.
Yeah, and Flash Gordon.
Is Dragon Quest, is that the one which the Dragon Ball guy drew?
Yes.
Does it look good? No, you just said it doesn't look good. Should it look good? Does it normally look good?
Whenever you're in a battle, so the character sprites for the enemies, they have like these fully drawn portraits, and those actually do look pretty nice.
Oh, okay.
It's just when you're just walking around when the game looks bad. Well, the character sprites look bad, and the screen interpolation is bad, but the backgrounds actually look pretty decent.
Alright.
Yeah, it's a weird mishmash. So, one of these days I'll play Dragon Quest 2 and 3 as well. Just to kind of like finish up that trilogy. But unless you're like a really hardcore JRPG fan, and similarly you want to play it for like historical reasons, it's not really a game I would recommend going back and playing. If you've played JRPGs, if you've played like a Super Nintendo RPG, a PS1 RPG, a PS2 RPG, you've technically already played Dragon Quest. It has everything you've seen.
Games have iterated enough on it that it doesn't have anything new to show you.
Pretty much. It literally is just for the sake of going, oh, okay, this is where everything came from. So...
Didn't you once tell me that the original Fire Emblem was worth playing?
I've never played the original Fire Emblem.
Oh.
What? Didn't you talk about that once?
I remember you saying that Fire Emblem used to be a lot more
that was
hardcore.
That was Breath of Fire, I think.
No. You're thinking of Path of Radiance on the GameCube. That's a great Fire Emblem game worth playing.
Oh yeah.
Because I was complaining.
Fire Emblem. You were complaining about the waifus.
Yeah, I was complaining about how Fire Emblem Awakening and Fire Emblem Fates and probably Three Houses, because I haven't played Three Houses yet, they're all focused on the waifus, while like Path of Radiance had none of that shit and was all about like the political drama. It was all about like, warring kingdoms and racism. So it was like really interesting and cool, and they actually dealt with real shit instead of just like, oh, let's have a tea party so I can fuck you later.
Well, if it's got political themes in it, then I don't want to play it. I don't like politics in my games.
Okay.
I'm hitting the home runs in this episode with my witty jokes.
You're biting satire. So the last thing I did was watch a movie called Parasite. No relation to the anime and manga called Parasite. This is a Korean film about a family of con artists.
Okay.
And I don't really want to say much more than that because this movie is really fascinating. And I think the less you know about it, the better it is. I thought it was fantastic. The movie has a great pace to it. It has no fat. It uses up every second purposely. The film is extremely well constructed. It has really interesting characters, very unique characters. Like these aren't they feel like real people, but at the same time they all feel like kind of weird and quirky. But not to the point where they feel like ridiculous. They just feel like people. But some of the situations that they get in are like really crazy. But the progression of the film makes all of it feel natural. Like there are some crazy twists that happen in the film, but the way that the film is structured and written, none of it feels out of place. It all feels like a natural progression, despite the fact that when you look at where the film starts and where it ends, it almost feels like a different movie. It is astoundingly well crafted. So I would strongly recommend Parasite. It is just a great movie. Now, if you are a little concerned based on the title because you think it might be like some weird horror film or something, it's not. Let me just assuage you right there. There's nothing weird, supernatural bullshit. It's not a horror film. The title Parasite is like more thematic and more symbolic than it is literal. So definitely give it a shot. Friggin' awesome movie.
All right.
Boken, what have you been up to?
I've played the Star Wars game.
Did you clap when you
I
saw the
clapped
thing?
When I saw Darth Vader.
Ah!
And he had red lightsaber and he used the Force.
I haven't gotten to that part yet.
How did you feel about his rubbery mask?
He has a rubbery mask?
It's got like a weird I don't know what is it called. Is it a shader? It like the way it refracts light. It looks like it's made of like really cheap plastic, that mask.
You know what the problem is? I think I was rolling my eyes too hard, so I didn't see.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Why you gotta be so cynical?
You know,
It's just
Chris
Star Wars.
Avalon listens to this podcast. My friend Chris, why are you dunking on his game so hard?
The game was okay. That ending, though, made me cringe so hard. That was like the ending of Rogue One, where Darth Vader appears, and then... Like, when did Darth Vader become able to just throw people around, bend metal with his force powers? In the fucking ending of this game, he literally pushes back, rushing in water in an underwater base. That's how powerful he is.
Yeah.
It's so dumb.
Well, you gotta expect that once these Star Wars projects got some money behind it, the power levels started escalating. Did you ever play The Force Unleashed?
Yeah.
Those games are such fucking shit.
Such
Yeah, they're pretty bad about that.
that
I don't-
moment when you focus on the Death Star and you just bring it down with your sheer force.
The Star
powers.
Destroyer.
The Star Destroyer.
Oh
whatever.
yeah, I hated that part of the
Oh,
game. That's like the worst part of that game because the controls are so like they're telling you to tilt the control sticks in a certain way, but like you're not getting enough visual feedback to know like if you're doing it right. It's so bad. Ugh. What I really hate about the Force Unleashed was that I get the idea, right? It's the Force pushed to the nth degree, and you can do all these crazy things with it. But then it severely devalues what happens in the movies because it takes place like right before episode 4, and like Luke can barely like push things with the Force. Yeah. And here's this motherfucker, flipping around, using the Force to like shoot lightning and like push giant doors and just like doing crazy things with it. He's like a Super Saiyan.
Yeah. I hate that about the prequels too, where they're all doing flips and shit.
Yeah.
Like, why would you do a flip in the middle of a lightsaber battle? What possible advantage does that give you?
Remember in episode 4 when Darth Vader barely chokes someone from like 2 meters away? And then in Rogue One he just...
What was the deal with that guy? He was like, Don't talk so loud about your kooky religion, Darth Vader. The power of the Force is no match for the Death Star. Like, who do you think you are? Like, you live in this universe. Why are you antagonizing this guy? He's like 2 meters tall. He's a bodybuilder. He was played by bodybuilder David Prowse, and he's got a lightsaber. Why are you antagonizing him? And he's also your superior.
Because at the time, Darth Vader's character clearly wasn't that fleshed out yet. By that time, he was just a thug. He was just like some dude with a laser sword. Like he was just a couple of steps above a stormtrooper. Like he wasn't like deified until later on.
Jesus. And yeah, well, I guess, does the timeline even make sense that people would forget the Force so quickly?
Yeah, remember when Tarkin goes, Obi-Wan Kenobi, surely he'd be dead by now. What, 19 years he's dead? You're 90. Obi-Wan is in his 50s in episode 4.
What?
He's in his
80s.
He was 35 at the end of Revenge of the Sith. And it's 19 years later. He's like in his mid-50s.
Yeah, it's ridiculous that they just forget about.
Anyways.
The entire Star Wars like continuity is fucked.
Anyway, you played the Force Unleashed. Did you like it,
No.
Bogan?
Well, I did play that too, but not the past couple of weeks. Fallen Order it's like the definition of a fine game, which usually I hate, but for some reason, I was feeling charitable towards this game.
Didn't we give it the award for the best game that was just a game? Best game that wasn't great, or something.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's like the game it's nothing special. It's fine. It works. It's enjoyable. But for some reason, seeing just a fine Star Wars game kind of kept me going, because I realized that I actually enjoy this universe, and I enjoy when you go to the weird planets like Kashyyyk.
Yeah.
Or the desert or fucking whatever. There are a bunch of planets there. And it's just running around, or Bogano. And then you see these weird creatures and these weird fauna and flora. And it's just enjoyable. Like when Star Wars has colors and imagination, it's a really cool universe. And
yeah, I like the planets in this game.
Somehow we lost this.
Some of the planets were really cool.
How deep into the expanded universe have you gone?
None. Not deep at all.
Okay. I recommend you read Shadows of the Empire.
No.
I recommend you read it. I would say it's...
I just want to get into the expanded universe.
Shadows of the Empire is so good. It's... They should have made that into a movie. They should make that an animated movie just now and slot it into the canon. It's so good. You can also read the Thrawn trilogy. You can read the Bane trilogy. You can read... I think there's a good Han Solo trilogy too. But yeah.
Okay.
Why don't you want to get into the canon, Bogan? This is the old canon, by the way.
This is not canon anymore.
So? They're still
shit
good.
In the trash.
What? Wait a minute.
This is not canon anymore, is it?
Who cares about that? You can read good stuff
I
even
care.
if it isn't
I
in
don't
the
want to read
canon.
fan fiction.
This isn't fan... This was the canon.
Yeah, but it's not anymore. I want a working, fleshed out universe.
This was
Then play KOTOR 2.
This was that.
That's not canon either.
It doesn't matter. Play
also,
it.
I now can't play Jedi Outcast anymore because that's not canon. I think that was.
Why
never
are you
canon,
like
honestly.
this?
Jeez, I don't
Jedi
give a-
Outcast is great.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite games of all time.
What is wrong with you?
But now it's not part of the canon, so it's like, oh, forget it. Can't
So
ever
it's
play
like,
it again.
who cares, you know?
No, Kyle Katarn is awesome.
Well,
He's like the most fanboy character in Star Wars, but he's still awesome. He like becomes
In
a
Dark-
Sith, and then he becomes a Jedi again.
In Dark Forces, he literally punches, Rancors to death. That's awesome.
Why don't you want to read good books, Bogan? What if I was like this? Oh, I'm not gonna watch Madoka Magica because it's not in the Star Wars canon, so it doesn't matter.
I
wouldn't
wouldn't put it
doctor
past
to
you.
check if you have some brain hemorrhage or something.
So I think I feel similarly about Fallen Order. It's like the best 8 out of 10 game.
You've not really played it though, have you?
Yeah, I haven't beaten it, but I've played like a good chunk of it. I'm on the Wookiee planet.
Okay. That's the second planet, I want to say.
No, it's the third.
The third. See, what... Okay, so I kind of enjoyed the game. I kept going, it was fine, it was fun. What I found so weird about it, and that's where I kept seeing myself looking at this game at a meta level, is that all of the Dark Souls influences that they put in the game make no sense to me. It's so weird to just think about why they put this in the game. Like, why do we need these bonfire checkpoints? They don't do anything. Why do we need this exploration aspect where, you unlock new abilities and then you go back to old worlds and then you can, I don't know, open some crate that you couldn't get before. And it's all, none of it has any point. The upgrades you can get is like a new poncho or a new lightsaber hilt. There are so many ways to customize your lightsaber hilt, and none of it has a point because they're like
It's
you have
cosmetic.
your hands over it the whole time, and the camera is zoomed out. You can barely see your character. What the fuck does it matter what my lightsaber hilt looks like?
It's like
Yeah,
in
I thought
Elder
those
Scrolls.
were weird too.
It's like in Elder Scrolls when they start by having you customize your face, and then you're going to be wearing a helmet in the first person for the whole thing.
Yeah.
What the fuck do I care? What the ship I'm flying from planet to planet on? What kind of color it has?
I also hate how these lightsabers are customizable in Star Wars games. Wherein isn't the point of these weapons that this is like you have to respect it? You're not respecting it when you're tearing it apart every other day and just, I want to have a blue lightsaber now. I want to have a green lightsaber now.
Well, I was happy when I got to the point where I could actually pick my lightsaber color.
Ugh.
Because I was complaining on Twitter earlier that I just want a pink lightsaber. And none of the Star Wars games let me have the freedom to get that.
A pink
And then,
lightsaber. KOTOR.
You know, we were trashing Force Unleashed before, but in that game's defense, it probably has the
It has
most
that.
diverse colors for lightsabers.
probably.
KOTOR has extensive lightsaber customization.
But not one.
Yes?
I don't
Number
think
one, too.
What?
Number 1 did.
You had blue, you had green, you had purple,
You had red,
you had
yellow,
yellow,
white, dark
white.
green.
No, that was in 2.
No, you had white in the first game too.
No, I'm pretty
No,
sure you
no.
didn't.
I'm pretty sure you did.
No, that was in 2.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't 1 2. But I also don't
remember.
care. But I am right.
Anyway, I got a pink lightsaber in Jedi Fallen Order, and then I was happy.
Why do you want a pink
Wait,
lightsaber?
there actually is a pink one?
Yep.
Why did you want a
Oh.
pink one? Are you a girl?
Yes.
Maybe they should put a little pink bow on the lightsaber too. And
Fine, I don't give a fuck.
like a little cute phone accessory of Baby Yoda.
No, fuck Baby Yoda.
Oh, come on, man. Why you gotta be like
Aw,
this?
Don't be like that.
What else did I want to say? Well, can you guys explain to me why games need why AAA 3D games need Metroidvania style open-ended levels?
I don't need them.
Why did God of War 4 need to have that?
I don't know.
What is it with this dumb obsession with breaking up the pacing of a game just to go back and get some dumb upgrades?
I think
People
partly,
like it.
I think partly it's because designers like to design that. It's probably a lot more fun designing a level, designing worlds like that than just here's a corridor that is 8 hours long, which is just a game like Uncharted, for example.
Well, then don't make it a corridor. Make it something. See,
No, but
I hate Uncharted, but at least Uncharted, you can see where they understand, like, this has been going on for long enough. We need an action set piece, or we need like a new location. We need
Yeah.
something else here.
yeah, I agree with you that I
we're
think
not game designers.
I think
you know,
I
like
think
we're just pundits.
if you're
We-
maybe Star Wars, I don't know. I haven't played Jedi Fallen Order, Bogan. Do you think it would have been better served as more cinematic?
Probably not. It would have been better as a linear story, though.
So do you think Fallen Order would have been better if it leaned harder into the Uncharted style and it was just Uncharted with lightsabers?
No, God, no. It,
Then what are you complaining
want?
about?
What is it you want then?
what I want is if you have exploration and Metroidvania style upgrade systems, then make the upgrades make them have any point. Number one. Number two, why not go linear and actually focus on the combat, because the combat is way too simple, because it's like we made Dark Souls combat, but somehow we made the parry too strong again, and now all you need is to parry twice and then you can beat anything. And so I didn't even spend my upgrade points because all of them are useless because I don't need any of these moves. It's like
I think
it's such a weird. And then also then you have Uncharted style climbing, which needs no skill. So if you want fucking focus on the climbing, but make it like actual skill for climbing, like Prince of Persia or whatever. Just don't throw these ideas together because they're from popular games, and then don't flesh any of them out.
I think I said this in my KOTOR video, but I really think Star Wars undermines itself. The Star Wars games undermine the franchise, the license, when they decide to be about that sort of Twitch action gameplay. I think a good Star Wars game should be about like the role playing and all of that good stuff. Do you think it would have been served better as just on the... Let's say Jedi Fallen Order ran on KOTOR. It was just KOTOR, but Jedi Fallen Order's story. Would that have been better for you?
No, because the story isn't very good either. Because it's a safe story. Like,
I can't believe you insulted Chris Avalon.
I don't think you know what you want. That's what I'm getting from this.
You know what the fuck I want? Is... Well, actually, that's not true. I wanted to say I want another Jedi Outcast, but I don't actually want them to just remake Jedi Outcast, because that's not going to work either. I could see this game working just fine if the combat was way deeper and the enemy variety actually forced you to use all your moves. And
Isn't
then
this a game where you're just
completely... What?
Don't all the enemies just have guns?
No.
Oh.
A lot of them do. I mean, they have different guns.
Sure.
They have like flamethrowers and blasters and rocket launchers.
Now, I know someone that was complaining about how Jedi Fallen Order isn't reiterating on Jedi Outcast combat, which I thought was a really odd thing to say. Because while, yeah, the combat in that game is awesome, at the same time, I don't think that would work very well for a controller. And second of all,
well, the game existed on the GameCube.
Technically, but
I didn't play it on that. That's true. But
technically, yes, those games like Outcast and Academy did get console ports, but come on, those games were clearly meant to be played with keyboard and mouse. They were not. They were not suited for a controller. I tried playing those games with controller. It sucks. Those games are at their best keyboard and mouse. So I think with Jedi Fallen Order, these are games that were clearly made for consoles. Yeah. So I think it'd be very weird for the games to have for Fallen Order to have a control scheme that is geared towards keyboard and mouse. Not only that, but I think it's also kind of odd for a company to like dip back in the well that far. Like, hey, let's just rip off a combat system from like 15 years ago.
Yeah, totally. And I don't want them to just remake the same thing anyway. Like,
sure.
part of what made Jedi Outcast so great is also the anarchic sense of not only having a really strong lightsaber that is well implemented, but also you can like cycle through 10 different weapons and they're fucking crazy. You get like a rocket launcher and an electric gun and a Wookiee bowcaster that you can charge and all that shit. You get a sniper rifle. Huh. You can approach these levels in so many different ways.
I'm just glad that Jedi Fallen Order doesn't play like Force Unleashed.
Does it have those QuickTime events where you just push the right buttons at the right time?
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It sometimes has clashes where you just smash one button.
I hate when
games
do that
there isn't
shit.
a lot. There isn't a lot, but there are some QTs.
I hate when they do that shit. Just if you need to take the control away from me, just take the control away from me. Don't give me this limp dick. Oh, you're still in control. Your input still matters. It doesn't. It really doesn't.
I sometimes see like there are points where you're holding forward because you're moving along the level, and then your character like, I don't know, he walks a bit slower and the camera shows off some cinematic perspective.
Ugh.
And I'm like, at some point I just let go of the control stick and my character kept moving. And it's like, why are you trying to trick me? I don't get it.
Ew.
What are you doing? It's all these weird... It's so many weird AAA trends put into one game that this is like the Frankenstein's monster that I'm always dreading, where I feel like I'm not playing someone's vision. I feel like I'm playing someone's market research.
Oh my god.
But at the same time, I didn't hate it because, I don't know,
it's Star Wars and it
fine.
works and it's not filled with microtransactions like Star Wars has been for the last 10 years.
Yeah, and it's not filled with dumb references to things that everyone likes. It actually goes to planets that I haven't seen that often.
Except for Darth Vader.
Yes, which was the worst part at the end.
They need to make... What's cool about The Mandalorian, for example, is that it kind of just... It works on its own. You can watch it and not know anything about Star Wars, and it still works.
Except for Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
No, even Baby Yoda. It's just like a little baby he finds.
No, that also has force powers because Yoda has force powers.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Sure.
But
I don't think you necessarily need to have seen Star Wars.
I feel like, it's even with like KOTOR. KOTOR totally works as just its own isolated story. I don't think there's a single reference to the movies in those games. There's no time where one of the persons goes...
how could they? They take place like 1,000 years before.
Well, a worse game, they would have made like a Jedi meditate and he goes like, oh, I see darkness in a mask and I hear breathing. Ah! But that's 4,000 years from now, so we don't need to worry. And it has no bearing on the game. That's what a worse game would have been like. But...
Now, I actually really appreciate, that KOTOR takes place like so far in the past that like it has like literally nothing to do with the movies. That was a great choice on their part.
You know, they were offered to do either an Attack of the Clones tie-in game or their own thing. And it's like, we had to think about it, but we chose to do we had to think about it for a bit, but we chose to do 4,000 years in the past because we felt like we could have more agency. You didn't have to think about it.
You didn't think about anything. You were like, nope. No, we're going to do this. What is there to think about?
To our eagle-eyed listeners, no, that doesn't work. To our listeners,
eagle-eared listeners?
No, not even. Just I want them to know. I'm doing a little PSA here. I've been in talks with Chris Avalon. He's gonna do the podcast one day, but Boken keeps delaying it because he refuses to play KOTOR 2, and he also refuses to talk to Chris Avalon without having played KOTOR 2.
That is a correct timeline of events.
So, if you guys could hassle Boken, if you want us to talk to Chris Avalon, you need to hassle him. I just call him Chris, though. He's my friend. I don't know if I've said this to you guys. I'm not name dropping or anything. I'm not like dropping because he's famous and he's my friend. We talked that one time. So yeah, how many stars would you give Jedi Fallen Order, Bogan?
How many stars?
Yeah, isn't that your rating system?
True. Well, it would be clearly a 3 out of 5.
How many?
I think that's fair.
Is it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, Daniel?
I give it a thumbs up.
Wow, the highest review he could give.
Oh yes. So with that in mind, we're gonna take a short break, and when we come back, we will talk about the game of the decade. Welcome back, everyone. It's time for the essay question. This time, well, it's less of a question. It's more of a discussion topic. We're going to be talking about what we think is the game of the decade. And I guess what that entails. So...
Did you talk about that in the opening? Or are you going to have to re-record that?
We talked about it in the opening.
Said that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Way to bury the lead, Daniel.
I hate you.
That's probably not even the right usage of that phrase.
No, it's not.
Shovel puns!
If you keep this up, the only burying going on is going to be you 6 feet under.
Oh, I see. It's like that.
Mm-hmm.
You're spewing vitriol at me out of spade instead of spite.
So,
Mm-hmm.
Game of the Decade.
Yes.
What do you guys think this should entail? Because I'm trying to think about it, and I'm like, what does that even really mean? Game of the like the best game of the decade, the most influential game of the decade,
The most
a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B,
the most beloved
like,
game of the decade.
I don't know.
The highest selling game of the decade, surely.
No,
Surely.
no way.
You guys, fine.
There's no discussion to be had there. It would literally just be like, oh, let's look it up. Oh, it was Fortnite. Okay.
It was Minecraft or Pokemon or something.
Or some crap. Some crap that doesn't matter. Unless you're 12.
Oh my god. You know what game really just bankrupted a lot of individuals? Fucking World of Warcraft. Broke so much. Hundreds of millions of dollars were wasted trying to copy World of Warcraft.
That wasn't this decade, though.
I know.
Yeah, I was going to say World of Warcraft was
saying.
the previous decade.
I'm just saying, because I was just thinking about this. Probably over $1 billion was flushed down the toilet in pursuit of, we want to do what World of Warcraft did. And that shows you how influential that game was last decade, that so much money was wasted pursuing what it had. Maybe that should be the standard. Which game set the trend by which most money was wasted trying to copy?
The only game I think even comes close to like overthrowing World of Warcraft is probably Final Fantasy 14.
What? Oh.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 14 is very successful right now. I don't know if it's bigger than World of Warcraft yet,
Probably
but
not. Surely
Well,
not.
surely because World of Warcraft has been on the decline for a while.
yeah, if any game were to overthrow World of Warcraft, it would be Final Fantasy 14.
Warcraft
I don't think World of Warcraft is like the
player base.
prime MMO anymore.
It's
Also,
not what it used to be. It definitely has declined over the years.
I'm pretty sure they don't even give out player numbers anymore.
Oh my god, What? They're estimating about 4.8 million active users for 2020.
For what?
World of Warcraft!
Okay, and Final Fantasy?
It was like 10 million in the fourth quarter of 2007.
Yeah, it's been going down, of course.
Oh my
What game can
God.
possibly keep up like that?
Final Fantasia 14 player base. More like payer base. My jokes. See, it's more painful because you guys aren't laughing with me. Oh my
It needs
god!
to be funny.
Active.
What?
All characters 5 million. Active characters 500,000 or like 600,000. So it doesn't have nearly as many active players as World of
That's
Warcraft does.
sad. I thought Final Fantasy 14 was way bigger.
Yeah.
But okay.
But okay.
See, World of Warcraft isn't eligible anyway, not only because it wasn't really in its... Like, it was
No.
in its heyday last decade.
No, I
but
was just
also...
thinking.
No, don't kid. I'm talking.
Sorry.
Also, it wasn't really decade defining in what it did. It defined the last decade, or at least the second half of the last decade. But that's when every game became an MMO. But,
Yeah.
MMOs aren't really that big anymore. Only some games still try to do that.
Yeah. But I was thinking more just, is that the standard? Which game pivoted the industry most towards copying what it did? Because if that's the standard, then that's an unfair standard, because that really games made late in the decade are not going to be able to compete with games made earlier. Surely we should have decided.
Well, you could say that about Game of the Year as well.
Yeah, maybe.
It's just kind of an inherent flaw of the nomination.
We really should have decided on the standard by which we were going to talk about this prior to talking about this.
Yeah, but then that's like half the fun just gone.
That's true. How about we just list off some games and say yes, yay, or nay?
All right.
So we make a closer list?
Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Nay. Red Dead Redemption. Did that come out this decade? Wasn't that 2010?
The first one?
Yes.
I don't know.
Let's say it was.
I want to say it did come out this decade.
I think it did. I think it came
did.
out a year before Elder Scrolls
maybe.
and that. I would say nay to Red Dead. I don't know why I brought that up.
I never played it anyways.
Oh,
it literally came out 2010. So it just barely scraped by into the discussion.
Biting at the bits. Bits. Yes. Skyrim.
No.
Well, I mean, Skyrim is terrible. Can you deny its influence?
I wouldn't say Skyrim is terrible.
I would say that. And
I
that's
would
why
say
I did.
it's a stark downgrade from its predecessors, but I think it's like fine as its own thing.
It's better than Oblivion. Oblivion fucking sucked.
I haven't played that much of Oblivion. So
I want to say Skyrim's better than Morrowind, but I'm sure a lot of people. I'm sure a lot of people will hate me for that. But I'm sorry. I tried playing a couple hours of Morrowind.
Skyrim is more accessible than Morrowind.
It definitely is more accessible.
No, it definitely.
But that's Skyrim's biggest downfall.
This isn't that talk. Skyrim is not winning Game of the Generation. Why do you guys think it's Dark Souls? Let's cut the pretense. Let's stop this. Why do you guys think it's Dark Souls? See, here's the problem with Dark Souls that you guys are gonna have to talk your way around. Dark Souls can't win on influence because it can't win on design because Demon Souls did its design first. It also can't win.
But Demon Souls came out the previous decade.
Yes, but the trend was already set by that point. Like that design was already there.
Wasn't. Number one, you can't set a trend if the game isn't trending.
No, I'm saying the design was already released.
Wait a minute. No, you can't say that because the world design of Demon Souls is completely different compared to Dark Souls.
Okay, wait. But then I would say Bloodborne's world design is immensely better than Dark Souls.
But Bloodborne was copying off of the success of Dark Souls.
Okay, but if you're going to make that argument, then why can't I make the argument that Dark Souls was just aping what Demon Souls did?
Because Demon Souls wasn't that popular, and it didn't have widespread appeal.
Dark Souls didn't have widespread appeal either. It had a niche appeal.
No, it became very popular.
Maybe. But I'm saying you can't give it to Dark Souls on design. You just can't.
Dude, Dark Souls and Demon Souls are not the same game.
You can't.
Demon Souls is very different.
No, they play exactly the same.
No. This is a BS argument because by this logic, then not even Demon Souls can get nominated for anything because, it can't be nominated, period, because it's not part of this decade. But this argument falls apart because Demon Souls was aping Kingsfield and Shadow Tower.
Not really. Demon Souls is pretty.
Yes, really.
It was pretty far removed from those two.
No, design-wise, they're very similar.
I feel like that's an argument. That really. My point is, you can't give it to Dark Souls if you're gonna just say this is a game that's really well designed. Because Demon Souls did it first. And if you don't care that Demon Souls did it first, then you're gonna have to explain to me why it's Dark Souls and not Bloodborne.
Because.
Okay, here it goes.
Number one, Demon Souls was not very popular. It was kind of maybe ahead of its time, but it's also not exactly the same package as Dark Souls delivered.
Okay, so right now you're arguing from a point of influence.
Yeah, yes. I feel like I don't...
Okay.
Because Dark Souls as a package was what actually influenced all the games after that. Because that's what also everyone keeps referring to. And in terms of like level design, in terms of checkpoint systems, we just talked about Jedi Fallen Order. And also in terms of just the lore becoming, and the type of storytelling becoming incredibly popular. It did that better than Demon's Souls. And it like...
No, I don't think it did it better than Demon's Souls. I think it became more popular than Demon's Souls.
Yeah.
And I would then say Bloodborne did it even better than Dark Souls. See, I'm not willing to give it to Dark Souls purely on popularity, because if we're going that route, I'm going to have to say it's Minecraft way before it's Dark Souls.
I'm willing to hear out the argument for Minecraft, because I haven't played Minecraft and I can't talk about that.
Never?
Game. No.
Whoa.
Never.
You're that guy.
You want to listen to all the other big series I've never played because I don't give a fuck?
Man, you really are boomer boken.
That's not true at all. You're the fucking boomer.
How am I a boomer?
Anime stopped being good after the 80s.
I never said that.
Daniel, I think I once said you were the type of guy who became rich because a bunch of Japanese investors in the 80s gave you a lot of money for your lawnmower business you started out of college, and you just sat it out riding the wave of the Japanese economy, and then you've just been condemning every younger generation for not pulling their weight when you just got really lucky. You're that type of person.
How the fuck did you extrapolate that from me?
So Minecraft, I would say...
You just dodged the fucking question!
First of all, Minecraft way more popular than Dark Souls. Is it it's the most popular game this decade, right?
No, wouldn't that be Fortnite?
You know what? It would be some mobile game. Bejeweled Blitz, Candy Crush. But we're not giving it to those games.
No, I think it's Fortnite. Fortnite is the most popular game of the decade.
Well, even if that's the case, Minecraft is immensely popular. I would say in terms of opening up the indie market, Minecraft really deserves a shout out. Every game, for a long time, a lot of those indie games all tried to do what Minecraft did. They tried to have those, we have a crafting system like in Minecraft.
I think you're making a strong argument in regards to Minecraft's influence on the indie scene. I think without Minecraft, I don't think the indie scene would be flourishing the way it is today, because Minecraft opened the doors for that industry to thrive.
Yes. Of course, like Steam and other platforms opening up their markets to the indie games.
Yeah,
cannot be understated, but Minecraft really sort of showed that no, you can do it outside of the studio model.
Sure.
I feel like Minecraft has done more. It has influenced games a lot more than Dark Souls has. Surely.
Has it though? I mean,
but that's probably like a big because the market.
How many games do you see out there that's like copying Minecraft? Like the only one I could think of is that's not like some garbage asset flipping trash. Is Terraria.
Fortress Craft.
Yeah, can you guys explain to me how Minecraft influenced general game design?
It didn't.
I think that's unfair. I feel like when you have games like No Man's Sky, for example, I feel like that's very much just Minecraft, but let's do it in space. That hit. People turned around on that game once they patched in the multiplayer they promised.
I think that's just what the game journalists want you to believe.
Honestly, if we're talking about games that it doesn't count. I was gonna say if we're talking about games that influenced the current design trends, I was gonna say Uncharted 2, but that came out 2009, so that doesn't.
I think we're past the Uncharted phase.
Yeah, but it was there for a
But
pretty long
but
time.
we're talking about the decade, and you can't tell me that a significant portion of the decade was not heavily influenced by Uncharted 2.
But going
It
back...
felt like every other game was some set-piece riddled linear third-person shooter.
Yeah, but I would say that trend even started back with like RE4. I would say that RE4 is like that's the beginning of that sort of game. Then you have Gears, and then eventually that amalgamated into Uncharted.
Gears. Oh, fuck.
But,
Yeah.
What a shit series.
Going back to what we said earlier, maybe it is Skyrim. I mean, Skyrim is the first time I remember people really talking about liking open world games. And then a lot of games just started being open world because Skyrim was open world.
You know, you might have a good point.
I might.
A lot of games like Far Cry 3 through 5 and all the spin-offs, I mean,
Far Cry
all
was
of those...
sold as Elder Scrolls with guns.
So was Fallout. Fallout 3 was basically, look, it's Oblivion with guns.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like those Bethesda RPGs are kind of an entity of their own. I don't think they completely represent where AAA games are currently. I think something like Assassin's Creed or Assassin's Creed 2 represents it more.
I don't think... Do you think so?
Yeah, it's that open world checkpoint gameplay where the traversal is really simple.
Sure, but I don't think you'll read an interview and somebody says, yeah, we played Assassin's Creed and we want to be like them. Like, nobody talks about Assassin's Creed, fondly from a design perspective, but people really loved Skyrim for its open world. I feel like... See, I poo-pooped Dark Souls, which is one of the best games ever, but I feel like if you're gonna... See, if we're gonna give it to a game based on just how much it influenced games in the decade, can you make a better argument? Can you make an argument better than Skyrim?
Yes.
What game?
I'm not sure if Skyrim is really the one that set the precedent for all the open world games we're currently playing. But I'm trying to remember what other games really did this first.
I don't think it's a matter... But wait, it's not a matter of what did it first. It's a matter of what set the trend.
Sure.
See, that's what I'm saying. If you guys are gonna say Dark Souls did it first, but it didn't set the trend, then surely Skyrim would be the game of the generation, right? Decade, right? And I'm also I note again what I said earlier. We're just talking about games that came out really early in the decade here. Like Minecraft, Dark Souls, Skyrim. It's all 2011.
Yeah.
Sure.
But
because they influenced the decade.
Yeah.
But
so there is an early there's an early release bias inherent in the system.
I feel like
because these games came out earlier in the decade, therefore it's more likely that they influenced the games that were populating the decade.
But I also feel like you could make the argument that the game of the generation is the sort of should come out in the decade should come out really late in the decade, as it's sort of all the designs really just led to this. So you could say, well, Demon Souls or Uncharted 2 or whatever is the game of the last decade. And the game of this decade is probably Jedi Fallen Order.
I think we should get away from most influential.
Okay.
Because we're just gonna settle on a game that none of us are particularly passionate about. I don't think any of us really like Skyrim that much to be like, oh yeah, it's game of the decade.
I feel like we could just make up different categories.
Oh, I should have made which is the best game this decade with a prominent car?
No, because I think something like Dark Souls influenced the decade differently than something like Skyrim, right? And then I would also throw in there The Last of Us, which also had a heavy influence on where game writing went.
Oh yeah,
Sure.
Last of
And
Us.
then, of course, some of the Call of Duty games, which influenced the early decade more than the later one because of all the military shooters that
but
came out.
that was also,
And
those were still
yeah,
in response to the latter half of the last decade, though.
Yeah, when did Modern Warfare 2 come out?
2000.
That was late last decade, right?
Yeah, I think it was before 2010.
Okay, let me check. Modern
probably
Warfare
was.
2. Modern Warfare 2 came out 2009.
Yeah.
Whoa. So yeah,
But see, and then you could make up a category like what did the decade lead to, which is where you get these refined versions of what set the trend in the early decade. And that for me is Breath of the Wild, I think. Because
Really?
Breath of the Wild has like this sort of Dark Souls-esque storytelling that relies on the environment, on the environment, and these short bits of memory where you have to piece in the rest. It
I feel
relies.
like I feel like
Too
that
bad
though.
the story sucked.
I feel like I
and
feel
then
like
it also has
environmental
this open world
storytelling.
gameplay. Sorry, yeah.
I'm sorry, I was interrupting you, but I feel like environmental storytelling that traces its origin back to like BioShock. That's when people started talking about environmental storytelling.
I would trace it back to like Silent Hill 2 and Metroid Prime.
Yeah, you can even do that. I'm just saying, like the layman, the mainstream.
Like, dude, like fucking. There was a hole here. It's gone now.
Yeah, I know. I played Silent Hill 2, I think, but
Even Silent Hill 1 had great environmental storytelling.
games have had great environmental storytelling for a long, long time. I'm just saying the mainstream.
My argument
I didn't
wasn't
know
that they didn't. My argument
just
was
saying,
that
I
this
feel
became
like-
a very that this became a very popular talking point with Dark Souls.
See, I'm saying it became a popular talking point with BioShock.
Maybe.
That's when I first saw like articles really talking about it.
You might be right.
Well, BioShock also brought us the shit show that is ludonarrative dissonance.
Oh my god. I don't think BioShock deserves to be punished for that.
Well,
one.
BioShock came out 2007. So
Yeah, that's
it's
last
not,
gen. But
Like it doesn't count for this discussion, anyways.
no, but I'm saying if we're gonna give it to Breath of the Wild, I was just saying, if you're saying Dark Souls influenced Breath of the Wild on that, I would say probably you could trace that more to BioShock.
Well, you could, but also that was a very important point that people loved about Dark Souls. So it still
Yes.
stands that is part of the influence that Dark Souls
Yes,
had on
yes.
the later games. And
That's
like look
true.
at games like Hollow Knight and all that.
Yes, I never played. I didn't finish Hollow Knight. I was gonna go back to it when I was watching Fate Zero.
You need to finish both.
I'll do them both at the same time someday.
And then
I swear to God, I'm gonna strangle you if you do that.
And then Breath of the Wild, had that open world gameplay, but it kind of took it a bit further with it had these Ubisoft towers, but it implemented them in a different way, in a more refined way, I would argue. It had, the promise that Skyrim made, which is see that mountain, you can climb it. That was
Oh,
actually
yeah.
what happened in Breath of the Wild. You could literally
You could
climb
actually
any fucking
climb.
mountain.
Yes.
As opposed to Skyrim, where you're just sort of like awkwardly trying to find the invisible hitbox and
Yeah.
navigate your way through for 20 minutes.
You're like awkwardly like shimmying on the edges of the mountain.
I don't
To
think
be fair,
Todd
that's
Howard.
what I did in Breath of the Wild too, but you could circumvent that by just getting a bunch of food.
Yeah, you could also just circumvent that by the fact that you can actually climb in these games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like
If we're
Breath of
giving
the
it-
Wild didn't take its design far enough because it's so easy to cheese that game. Because you could just like start climbing a mountain and then like while climbing when your stamina's about to run out, just fucking stuff your face with shit and that'll refill your stamina. You can just keep
Wait a minute,
climbing.
does food refill stamina in that game?
Of course, you
Yes.
can make certain recipes.
Yes. It
did
totally
not know
invalidate. It totally invalidates the sense of tension that you're supposed to
that
feel.
was part of the fun.
No.
It was just like preparation, and then saying, "Oh, I want to go there. I hope the food I have, lets me finish that."
Wait, what if we just say, which game do you think was like the best directed? Like the most pure.
Directed in what sense?
Just the most pure expression of a creative vision.
Nier.
Ooh.
Nier Automata.
Nier Automata.
I can't think of any other game that is as razor focused on its points and getting them across, and where literally every facet of the game feeds into itself in that way.
Let me throw you some games here. I already noted Bloodborne earlier. How about a game like Journey? Would you give it to a Journey?
I never played it. I never played it.
What about a game like Detroit? Become Human.
Razor focused.
What about how about
razor focused shit?
How about something like a Gone Home or a Return of the Obra Dinn?
Yeah, or something like Gorogoa.
Something like Gorogoa.
Or something like Transistor. Or Pyre.
I think I read an article saying that no matter how I read a tweet saying no matter how good an indie game is, it can't be Game of the Year. So I'm gonna say it can't be Game of the Decade either.
That's a shitty thing to say. I think Celeste was very deserving of Game of the Year.
I would throw if we're talking about just well directed, I would say PT, the playable teaser. That's really well directed. We're
kind of. That's not really a game, though.
I think it is.
It is, but
I think PT. I don't know. I haven't read like the secret emails over at Capcom, but I bet PT had something to do
Konami,
with
not Capcom.
No, Capcom. I think.
Oh, you meant Capcom.
I think PT had something to do with Capcom saying, "Hey, people actually like horror games. How about we make Resident Evil a horror franchise again?"
I would say PT definitely influenced Resident Evil 7.
Yes, like the teaser, playable teaser for that, they just did PT basically. Not as well, but
no, not as well. But the actual game turned out pretty good.
Yes, and we're getting RE3 remake, and I'm excited. I clapped when I saw the trailer, boys.
I clapped when I saw Nemesis because I recognized him.
Stars. But
so
yeah,
what are
Bloodborne,
we discussing right now?
Sekiro maybe? Nah.
Nah.
Now we're talking just what if we give it to the game which is the most pure expression of a creative vision.
That's not indie. That's not indie because indie would be too easy to pick.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm sticking with Nier.
It can't be like an Assassin's Creed because those feel very made by committee.
Obviously.
Oh, wait. What about Xenoblade Chronicles 2?
Haven't played it. But I saw those cutscenes you sent me, and no, it's not that game. Would you guys consider a Portal 2?
I would consider a Portal 1.
Portal 1 came out last generation. Last decade.
Then
Portal
no.
2 is 2011, I believe.
Then no, because that's like... Well, just no.
Okay.
Yeah, Portal 1 came out 2007. Portal 2 came out 2011.
Yes.
Would you guys consider a Path of Exile?
Haven't played it.
I never played it.
That's too bad.
How about
I guess that's also an indie game, so...
How about something like a Pillars of Eternity or a Shovel Knight?
Sure. Like, that's... There are a lot of games that do not really have to rely on... on the typical trappings of AAA.
You need to unlock the map, and you need to go and find all the hidden crap. Here's a box, and you can open the box.
Here's a crafting system.
Here's a crafting.
Here's
your upgrade path. Here's a skill tree.
Okay,
You can get
clearly
a 5%
we're all forgetting
increase.
about the truly greatest game that came out this decade, which is a Deadly Premonition.
I knew you were going to say that, you bastard. Let me just say something right now.
Look, it has one of the best stories of the decade. It has one of the best main characters of the decade. It has one of the worst performances of the decade. Because that game runs at like 15 frames per second.
What about Soma?
Soma's pretty good, but I can't see Soma excelling over any other game we've discussed in any... Like, I can't see Soma winning any of the awards for the categories we've been dealing
can you
out
really
here.
say that Soma is better than Deadly Premonition?
Why are you doing this? Who is this character you're piloting right now? Why are you trying it out on the podcast? Danielle, I think you should bury this character.
I would actually consider Soma for best writing in the decade.
Okay.
Although it has some problems, but...
I don't know.
This must be so much fun to listen to.
Yeah, we're really disorganized again. Also, we never really decided on which actual game of the decade is, and we already moved on to different topics.
Yeah.
How about let's keep it simple. What are the games that we liked the most this decade? I mean, that's going to be hard because
Any?
10. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's not that hard for me because I have a very clear top 10 and I just need to pick the games of this decade from that.
Give me your top 10, Bogan.
All of
Number
them?
10.
All of them or just...
Top 10.
Well, I don't think I want to go through all of them.
Number
Just-
9.
What? Just at least top 3, I guess, of your games of the decade. And then
In my top
You know.
10, the highest game from this decade is Dark Souls.
Okay.
And then the other ones would be Path of Exile, definitely. Gorogoa. Witcher 2 came out this decade, right?
Witcher 2.
Yeah.
Witcher 2 over Witcher 3.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting.
Brave.
Witcher 2 came out 2011, so yes, it counts.
It counts, Bogan.
And then also Transistor.
Oh,
And then
that's
I
a
think
good
I'm out
game,
of
isn't
games.
it? Isn't Transistor the one made by the Bastion guys?
Yeah, and by the Pio guys.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I think I agree with Dark Souls being up there.
Yeah, but I feel like, again, I keep going back to this. I just think Bloodborne is better than Dark Souls. I feel like the only thing Dark Souls has over Bloodborne is that it came out earlier, so it managed to influence games before Bloodborne was able to do it. But
Oh, yeah.
Well, we're not talking about influence right
No,
now. We're
yeah.
just talking about what are our favorite games.
I'm saying-
And you know what? I actually like Bloodborne more than Dark Souls, so I think Bloodborne might be my favorite game of the decade.
it's up there for me. Shovel Knight is also up there for me. You were talking about it earlier. That game is so
Shovel Knight, yeah.
charismatic.
It has a lot of personality.
Mwahahaha. I am the Plague Knight. I'm gonna plague you. That's an actual quote from the game, not really. Bogan, what are you sending me? What photograph are you sending me? Baldur's
That's my
Gate
top
2?
9.
Wait, did Baldur's Gate 2 come out this decade?
No, that's my top 9 in general.
Oh.
That's what I picked from.
Jesus, you really like East Origin.
Yeah.
Castlevania Order of
But also,
the
see, the
Foolish.
problem with Bloodborne is that I didn't like it as much because I've played 4 Souls game before that. Twice.
But,
all of them twice.
How?
Plus Lords of the Fallen. Plus, what...
I heard Lords of the Fallen fucking
Yeah, it
sucked.
fucking sucks. And then I played the 2D game. And then I was so tired of the whole formula that I just couldn't get into Bloodborne anymore.
Yeah, but I don't
And
think
that's the
that's not
problem when
on
you come out
Bloodborne,
later.
though, is it?
What?
But it's not the game's fault.
It is the game's fault when it doesn't change that much. And it works, it builds on the formula that has already been popularized and kind of overdone.
See, I would say that Bloodborne is the first time where any game really properly built on the Demon Souls formula. Hot take.
That's a scorching take.
Dark Souls. What did Dark Souls do? It did more open-ended. It did more looping levels, an interconnected world. That's it. It also gave you a stab-down animation. That's it.
It introduced some of the most popular characters of the decade, I would say.
It gave you the Estes system, a much inferior version to the grass system in...
No!
Yes.
Really?
Shut up! Shut up!
Oh,
you
yes.
are wrong.
No.
You are so wrong.
I am right.
No, you're
Really
not.
I am so right it hurts.
No, that is the worst.
Okay, Rich
No,
Evans.
I disagree, because you never screw yourself with the Estes system. You can't screw yourself with the grass system.
That's a point in its favor?
Yeah, great.
Yes.
What a fantastic system.
Because it makes the world feel so much more unfair. It's
the
like
world of Dark Souls feels plenty unfair.
No, they ripped out the character tendencies and the world tendencies.
Yeah, because that was the worst system ever devised by men.
That was the best. It was like, hey, you're bad at the game? Well, now the game's gonna fuck you harder. Congratulations. Really made the world feel like it wasn't your friend. In Dark Souls, that's not the case. Dark Souls, it's just like, yeah, I'm gonna play the game now and I'm gonna finish half of it.
How can you say that? How can you possibly say... How can you say the world in Dark Souls feels like your friend?
Because I played
The
Demon
first time you
Souls.
fucking go into the sewers and you fall in some pit and you want to fucking like lie down and die instead of watch what's around the next corner.
Because I already
Yeah, and then
played
the game
Demon
fucking
Souls.
hits you with like plague or some
That
shit.
shit
And then,
is so scary. The first time I got cursed by these dumb frogs and I didn't know where to
Yeah.
go. That was so fucked up.
Yeah.
and then you're like, I'm cursed. My health is down. What the fuck is that? How do I get rid of this?
But wait a minute now. How about soul form and body form in Demon Souls? Wow, I died and now I lose half my health.
Well, here's the thing.
I would say that's
it
a
wasn't
lot
that
more.
big. It wasn't even that big of a deal to be in soul form because you could get a ring that brings your health up.
No,
and
only up to 75% though.
That's a pretty decent amount.
Yeah,
and
but
it
it's-
ups your attack power. If you're in soul form, you do more damage.
So
What do you mean so? It isn't. If you only lose 25% of your health, but you get more attack damage, then it just balances out, and it's not that
I don't think
bad.
it balances out that much.
Uh,
Also, that's
Yeah, it
not...
does.
I don't know if that's actually true. I think you're talking about world tendencies again. See, because again, world tendencies goes, oh, you have bad world tendency? Well, these weapons are now going to do crap damage compared to these weapons. So now you have to actually... Like, the lore matters. You need to understand the lore. You need to understand why Soulbrand does different damage based on what your alignments are.
Why are we arguing about Demon Souls when that game did not come out this decade?
Also, that aside,
No,
isn't
because-
that part of the argument for why Dark Souls would be more influential? Because it left those systems behind. Like, we can discuss if it's idiotic or not. Demon Souls is very, very bad at explaining to you what the fucking world tendency does. So
I think-
by removing
yeah.
that part, maybe that's why people got into it a bit more.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say popularity... See, I would say that better design matters more than popularity. Which is why I was making the point of Demon Souls. I say Bloodborne is the true successor to Demon Souls in a way Dark Souls just isn't.
I don't think for a game of the generation the quality matters that much, because you have to consider a lot of other things. Like, how influential was it? How popular did it get?
But then we're just gonna be voting for Skyrim. You don't want that. You don't want that, Bogan. Come on.
That's why I brought it back to, no, let's just pick what our favorite game of the decade is.
I still personally, I like Demon Souls is my second favorite Souls game.
Yeah,
I still
I'm
like
not saying
Dark
these
Souls
games
more.
are bad. I just feel like Dark Souls is just a downgrade from Demon Souls, really.
I don't agree
no.
at all.
I think
You're
I think the
wrong.
games after Dark Souls are downgrades from Demon Souls, because
I
Demon
think
Souls did a lot of weird shit that the games then lost when they started aping Dark Souls.
I think all the games after Demon Souls are downgrades from Dark Souls. I just feel like Dark Souls after Demon Souls. Demon Souls I feel is the best one. Then you have Bloodborne, because it is Oh, you have the insight mechanic, for example. There's nothing as interesting as insight in Dark Souls. And even insight isn't as interesting as the world tendencies, I feel. Didn't we argue
You
once?
your fucking world tendency. What the
Yeah,
fuck?
we've argued about this before.
Yeah.
You also have character tendencies. Like, Bogan, you probably never even met Mephistopheles in Demon Souls.
I know
Why are you-
how to get to him. I just didn't feel like it because I hate world tendency.
It's her.
Fine.
Why? Like, what does that matter?
No, I'm saying because you can finish. It's so much. Dark Souls is so much easier to completely experience than Demon Souls is.
Okay.
So?
So I feel like it's a lesser game for it.
What fucking elitist are you?
I'm not an elitist at all. I will have you.
It really sounds like you are.
Anyway, if we're what are our favorite games?
This game is only fucking me over 90% instead of 100%.
I don't understand. I don't
Clearly, This is a
understand.
worse game.
I don't understand why this conversation got so Demon Souls focused when that game didn't come out this fucking
Because,
decade.
Daniel, Acer has an agenda and he doesn't want Dark Souls to win. So he comes up with these
we're
bullshit
not-
arguments.
But this isn't about any game winning. This should just be about what our favorite game of the decade is.
I can imagine how when I said 2 weeks ago, oh, it's going to be Dark Souls, how Acer was like furiously scribbling down notes against Dark Souls to make them in this very discussion.
It's too easy.
Motherfucker.
Yeah, it established design trends, but bad design trends. I'm trying to play Crash Bandicoot. Why is it exactly like Dark Souls now? The worst takes.
All right, so my favorite game of the decade is Bloodborne. There we go. And for Boken, I think it's Dark Souls.
It is.
I disagree with Bogan's
Okay,
choice.
so it's not shut the fuck up. What do you mean you disagree? There's nothing to disagree here. We're just saying what our favorites are. You can't say I disagree. What the fuck does that mean? What's your favorite game of the decade? Pick.
Probably Dark
Is
Souls.
it Demon Souls?
What do you mean probably Dark Souls, you piece of shit?
Did you just say
I thought you
Dark
said it was
Souls?
Bloodborne. I thought you said it was Bloodborne. I thought you said Bloodborne was better. What's wrong with you?
I think Bloodborne is better, but I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily Bloodborne for the decade, though. I'd probably have to think about it.
What's your favorite game of the decade?
I have to think about it.
This podcast is going to be the end of me.
I got you, Daniel. I got you good. Can the Majora's Mask remake be my game of the decade?
No.
Oh my god.
Why? What are you doing? Please stop.
Ace is completely losing it now.
I don't know, man. There's a lot of good games this decade. Did you play
Yeah,
that?
it's been a good decade.
Yeah, yeah, what am I saying? It's been a good decade.
Has there been a bad decade?
Yes, the 40s. But just a bunch of wars and shit.
Look, Acers, just stop kidding around. Stop bullshitting us. We all know that the real answer is Xenoblade Chronicles 2, so just pick it.
You're right, Daniel.
That one cutscene that you saw was better than any game you played this decade. You can't even lie to me.
I can't even lie to you. I try. You know I try. But I can't.
All the time.
I don't know. I guess. You know what? I'm gonna do a curveball. I'm gonna say PT. Why not?
Okay, cool. That's an interesting choice. That's fine.
It's a fine game. It's okay. It's not like a great game. It's just okay.
But it's your game of the generation. Game
Yeah,
of the
because
decade
Daniel is.
even.
Yes, because Daniel is being difficult.
Oh yeah, I'm the one being difficult. All right, that's it. End of the podcast.
Wait, we're done?
Yes, we're done.
I feel like we accomplished nothing.
That's how this podcast always ends up. All right, this has been Boken, Acer, and Daniel.
No, wait a minute.
Care,
what
everyone.
are you working on, Daniel? You need to do that part.
What am I working on?
Yeah, we need to say, hey, what are we doing? What are you working on?
Oh. I'm not working on anything right now because after I finished my school days video, I was like, man, I don't want to do anything. That school days video took a lot out of me.
I can imagine. How about you, Boken? What are you working on?
I'm working on becoming a Street Fighter V and Pokemon Sword and Shield tournament player.
You just talked about not wanting to become a competitive Pokemon player. What changed?
What? When did I say that?
You said you didn't want to become a Pokemon. It doesn't matter.
Guys, I need to wrap it up.
I never said that.
Guys, please, I need to wrap it up. Let's go.
Okay, but then you need to ask me what I'm working on, Daniel.
What are you working on,
None of
Acer?
your business.
Okay. I know it's Silent Hill 3. I know it's Silent Hill 3, so whatever. Anyways, that's been the show, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye. I maintain that the Estes system is worse than the grass system. And that's the official stance of the podcast. Bye.
Oh boy.